Hello again. Thank you for being here today. If you will, go ahead and like and share the post, and then join me in the 135th Psalm, Psalm 135, and we'll be starting there today in the 8th verse. Psalm 135, beginning in verse 8. We've been looking at this psalm for several days now, and again, just a reminder, this psalm is one that teaches us and helps us when we need the help of God, when we need God's intervention. And so that is the theme that we are dealing with here, and we'll continue, as I said, in verse 8. Verse 8 says, who smote the firstborn of Egypt, both of man and beast. And this section, what the psalmist is doing, is recalling the fact that God is able, when that God is greater than any adversary, any of the um, pretend gods, the idols, the many things that people of his day worshipped, that none could compare to the God of Israel. And he is given some examples here. He talks about God being in control of creation, the rain, the lightning, those type things. Now in verse 8, he brings up an actual historical event that he knows that God is great because God brings justice. He brought justice on the nation of Egypt, who were holding God's people captive, persecuting and abusing the people of Israel. Verse 9, he says, he sent tokens and wonders into the midst of thee, O Egypt, upon Pharaoh and upon all his servants. He's talking about there the 10 plagues, the water turning to blood, the locust, again, the 10 plagues that came on the nation of Israel, striking down the firstborn of every home, that God was the one responsible for that, responsible for the justice. They had been given the opportunity. Moses had confronted Pharaoh and told him that God had sent him and told him to let his people go. And Pharaoh refused, and so God brings judgment on them because of that. Verse 10, who smote great nations and who smote great nations and slew mighty kings. Not only again the people, the nation of Egypt, but many other nations who over time had come against Israel. Some in during the time when Israel was coming out of Egypt, coming out of their bondage during the Exodus, those nations that came against Israel, and throughout her history, Israel has been persecuted, been attacked, ordinarily by nations far larger, far more powerful, and yet God has defended his people, has taken care of all of those who would come against him. Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, and all the kingdoms of Canaan. So he lists some of these kingdoms here, again, who have tried to come against the people of Israel. And what he's doing, again, is just rehearsing, remembering the greatness of God, the power, the authority that God has over all creation. And as he looks at his situation, that's what's bringing him comfort. He says, I know I need help, and I know that my help comes from a God who is all powerful, a God who created heavens and earth, a God who has delivered Israel. And so, my challenge for you this morning, not just this morning, but as you go about your life, as we live our daily life, is that we'll be like the psalmist, that we will recall both those biblical accounts of the power, the healing, the authority of God, we don't have to just rely on those. We know that in our own life, God has shown Himself to be a great and powerful God that we can rely on, that we can turn to, and count on in our time of desperation. Whatever it is you're dealing with today, whatever you're going to come against in the rest of your life, you're a child of God. You know that you have a great God who has done great and marvelous things, and He is still on the throne. Have a good day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.